Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're going to be reviewing the album Espacios Intermedios by the band Linden.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
Yes, greetings everyone, this is COVID Naomi here. I'm not feeling good still and it's really testing me. You know, I'm like a modern day Job. It's just trying to see if I can hold on to this series until the end, despite the college, despite COVID, despite so many other things. Can I manage to do this? And well, it has been a rough thing to do. Hopefully I will. Anyway, here's some of my favorite bits from this album. Last time we reviewed an Argentinian band on this series was all the way back in episode 209 where we reviewed the album Boo Boo by the band Annabellas. And well, that was a pretty interesting album to say the least, and I did not think to myself that we will be coming back to the land of Alpha Horse yet another time this year, but apparently we are. And yes, these guys are from Argentina despite their pretty surreptitious name that sounds a lot more like something taken from German. And that's because it is, but we're gonna talk about it later. So even calling Linden a known band would be a major overstatement. Okay, these guys are quite the obscure band, and of course it makes a bunch of sense seeing as they're not coming from West Europe or North America, and every other region of the earth mostly seems to be quite obscure in the music and prog community as a whole, and well, these ones are definitely one of those bands, which also leads me to the fact that I am yet again stunned by the fact that someone even recommended them to begin with, because honestly, how does anyone find a band like this? Now, I must admit that maybe at the start of 2022, I had little to no idea that good and genuinely good prog existed in all regions of the earth. I began at thinking that, you know, prog is something that comes from Europe, maybe something from the US, although the US has always been known to create the lesser type of prog usually, and that's about basically it. But I was proved wrong time and time again, seeing great prog coming from regions like Brazil and I don't know, Uzbekistan and Russia and Japan and so many other regions. And coming back to today's random topic, we are of course talking about Linden, and I don't have a lot of information about these guys, and I'm basing everything from like the 2 paragraphs about them on the Prog Archive, so excuse me for it, but the main premise is that these guys formed somewhere around the beginning of this millennium in La Plata in Argentina. And another thing that I do know is that in 2007 they released their self-titled debut album, and it was pretty well received, I guess. Now, when it comes down to it, these guys, they're not new in the scene. They're not like Stratus Luna from Brazil made up of youngsters. No, these guys are actually well versed in the crevices of progressive rock making, and most of them have been active in the 80s and the 90s in various bands such as Fahrenheit, Krill, Elixir de Passion, and other bands which I honestly never heard of, but I can pronounce their names, so you know. Now, in order to explain the odd German name that this band has, we have to look at the fact that these guys mainly came from the same region in Argentina, as I said, from La Plata. And apparently La Plata was built in this sort of German architectural design that you can find in what I quote to be one of the neighborhoods of Berlin, and if I were to take take it, I would have guessed that it was the Unter den Linden neighborhood or boulevard in the middle of Berlin. Now, the original lineup of the band seems to have consisted of 5 members, and of course you have the quadrupent of the 4 basic rock instruments that you might expect added along with a violinist. And well, the album we're reviewing today actually came out 6 years after their debut, and it's called Espacios Intermedios, and this one has an extra member consisting of 1 new keyboardist. So yeah, that's I think all that I can stretch about this band. That's all the information I've got about them. If you have more information, feel free to share it down in the comment section. But when it comes down to this second and for now last album by this band, how does it fare? And well, this might be a bit of a tricky question. You see, at the start of the year, I thought many things, and one of the things that I thought is that generating a genuinely good progressive rock album was a pretty daunting task that not a lot could accomplish. But as I've gone through this year by now, I realized that, well, maybe it's not that big of a task, and if you have some capabilities and a lot of inspiration taken from various sources in the progressive rock world, you can definitely generate a good progressive rock album. The real trickiness, I believe, starts when you try to create something which is better, something which is so unique and so creative, which is a surplus of just pure imagination, and then you struggle with actually finding the right place in your heart to create such a thing. And that's why we don't see a lot of excellent progressive rock albums, but we see a lot of good ones. Now, I don't know if it's just me or the progressive rock music world, but I do believe that there's a sort of balance within them. Yes, I know I am generous. Maybe I have my bar set a bit too low and I give everything a bit of a higher rating than I should, but I also do believe that this list is mostly comprised of genuinely good songs. And you gotta remember, the initial question I asked people when I wanted them to recommend songs for the list was, what are some little known great progressive rock albums that you know? And well, these are the recommendations that I got. So yeah, as I said, this is a pretty good album consisting of good progressive rock, and when I say good, I mean somewhere around like a 7 or 8 out of 10, so you'll just get the premise of things. And all in all, Ünder Linden are actually a pretty interesting band on here, establishing their own grounds in the field of progressive rock while still also harkening back to a lot of various other influences. While I would call almost all of the songs from this album as being really nice and good to listen to songs, I think that my favorites consist of Quirks, which is a really interesting tune that does drive in the fact that this band has 2 playing keyboardists all at once. There's also the track of Tributo, which I will take as meaning tribute, and if I had to guess what tribute this is, it would be a tribute to Camel, sounding quite much alike to the region of Stationary Traveler in their discography. And personally, my favorite track from the album has to be Intentango, which has a pretty interesting name to it and honestly just has a really unique symphonic jazz fusion prog vibe to it that I personally really enjoy. Oh, and by the way, I didn't mention this up until now, but of course this band does the right thing when creating this type of experimental, unique symphonic music, and they don't include the vocals, and I'm really grateful for them. Yes, I also have some gripes with this album, I must say. The third and second to last tracks on this album go a bit up into the 7 minutes of runtime length, and honestly I think that it's a bit overdone in a way, and the band doesn't really have their footing quite right when it comes to these longer stretches of music, as well as the song of Disco Prog, which has such a cool name. It just seems to be the most promising thing ever, you know, take disco, which I personally enjoy, I know, just kill me for it, I guess, and it takes prog, puts them together, and it's supposed to be good. I think that the premise they got right in their head, but the combination itself just feels a bit half-assed, which I personally didn't really enjoy that much. And just to mention one more thing, this album ends with a track called 14/8 de Musica. Now, this one, I don't really have to know what it translates to, but the main premise of it is the fact that it has a 14/8 time signature, and while that might be a pretty impressive thing to play, these guys actually took this one from a live recording, just establishing the fact that they are both capable musicians in a studio setting, but also in a live setting. And honestly, while I don't think that it's that great of a song, this time signature is something that I think I've never been exposed to, and it sounds so freaking groovy and odd, and I've just enjoyed every single bit of it. But yeah, my throat is starting to strain. I can't really do this for long, and I'm so sorry. I would have done these longer videos, but I literally physically can, so I think that for now we shall move on to talking about this album's cover. So honestly, I really like this album cover, and it's quite a shame because I could not find a better version of it with the quality better than this one. But yeah, all in all, I really like this cover. I like the colors that it uses, and I love this cobwebby sort of spherical naturalistic vibe that's going on. I have no idea, but it really does harken with me because it feels like something that I would personally draw if I was left unguarded with a pack of colored pencils. And honestly, considering the fact that this album does have some pretty interesting and good music to it, I would love to listen to this one like in the background doing stuff and maybe even jam to it if I could. So I think that this one I'd love to have on vinyl, but I don't believe that it has a vinyl release, and I'm saying this because I'd love to have it both for the music and of course for the cover itself. So yeah, after going a bit of back and forth, I do think that I'll give this one a rating of 8 out of 10. But that's about it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and hopefully I'll feel better quite soon. And stay tuned for tomorrow because we're going to be listening to The Similitude of a Dream by the Neil Morse Band. I of course want to thank my lovely supporters over on Patreon, so thank you so much to Clay, Warner, Mist of Kings, and Lindsay Haycox. You guys are just the best. And if any of you want to support me over on Patreon, you can find the link down in the description or in my About page. But that's about it, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.